what happens when you let founders and entrepreneurs operate to the full extent of what they think that they can do. And on the founder side of things, like we've all been kind of handicapped by what we can do in this industry, and I think that's that kind of power is about to get unleashed.
This can actually be way bigger than 10 trillion or way bigger than digital,
Right.
like a gold market cap. Yeah. How much value do you think gets settled on the fucking internet? How big do you think that is? You mean like that's not 10 trillion? Sorry, I hate to break it. It's way, way bigger than that.
Skale is the blockchain that is simply built different. Other L1 networks have costly transaction fees, clunky user experiences, and lack true adoption in AI and on-chain gaming. Explore the gas-free ecosystem at skale.space/ecosystem and follow their journey on X at Skale Network. That is Skale with a K. Hit the link in the show notes to get started. Hey everyone, excited to share with you that Cronos ZK EVM has launched its Pioneer program, offering early adopters a chance to earn not only loyalty points, but also potentially win part of a $30,000 ZK CRO giveaway. If you're interested in being an early adopter, visit zkevm.cronos.org/bridge. Big thanks to Cronos for sponsoring today's episode. Let's face it, building on crowded L1s or expensive L2s is just not going to unlock the next generation of applications. Supra Containers offers dedicated, customizable app spaces running on Supra's 500 KTPS layer 1 blockchain, giving you complete control over gas tokens and fees. Get notified when Supra Containers are ready for builders at supra.com/containers. Are you a project founder that wants your team to be paid in stables or even just give your team token grants? Both of these things can become complete nightmares. Toku simplifies every part of global token compensation, all in 100 countries on one platform. Reach out to their incredible team at toku.com or by hitting the link in the description of today's episode. Hey everyone, Jason here. There's a reason why Ledger is trusted to secure more than 20% of the world's crypto assets today. Check out their newest devices, the Ledger Stacks and the Ledger Flex, featuring the world's first secure touchscreens. Take your security seriously. Hit the link in the show notes of today's episode to check out their latest devices. Trust me, you won't regret it. What's up?
God, feels good.
Trump wins and you go to Hawaii, huh? Or am I not supposed to? We can actually wrap this.
Oh, it's too late for that. I am still in America, the land of the brave, the home of the free, or what is it? The home of the free, the land of the brave?
Close. Yeah, close.
God, feels good.
Oh,
the probability of me moving back just goes up like through the roof. I love this country.
Wow, we got a new Santi today. Man, what a crazy week, huh? First off, how's the marathon? I gotta do the friendly.
No, none of this is about me. Like the marathon was an afterthought. I'm like, I wasn't even thinking about the marathon. I was thinking about the fund. I'm thinking about like the election. But honestly, like, what a great week. I mean, I've been sleeping so much better. You are. Before this recording, this just said I woke up at 5 a.m, blasting EDM Avicii music. I mean, I gotta think that most people in the industry are feeling a combination of euphoria and such a relief because, I mean, it's when you think and look back, yeah, it's been tough. It's been really tough to like feel like you don't feel comfortable telling people about the space. It feels like dirty to say that you're in crypto. Forget about the bear market. It just feels now it's like, God, it feels great to have someone that actually believes in this. And I don't know, it was a landslide win. So should we just unpack the election?
Yeah. Let's unpack it. And I would focus on, let's unpack it. I'd be curious to get your general takes.
Well, I was going to lean on you because you're the political expert.
I just finished our monthly kickoff, and what Mike and I said to the company is, there's two ways to talk about this election. There is the societal element of Republicans versus Democrats and Trump versus Harris, and the societal impact and the economy and taxes and abortion and immigration. And you know, I don't think that stuff really should enter into the workplace. I think companies are better when they're focused on their mission and their vision,
Mm,
um, and making an impact on the world through those things. And so, on the kickoff, we said, look, I think it's important right now to have. There are a lot of people who are really happy. There are a lot of people who are really upset, and it's important to have empathy for both sides. That being
mhm.
said, there's another way to talk about this, which is just from the light of the impact on the industry and the impact on. I mean, we had our it was our all hands, so the impact on the company, and it was. I mean, it's about as good as it can get, I will say. So, I mean, it's only been 20 less than it's been 36 hours since the election, and what Bitcoin shot up 7% overnight. It was
Yeah.
actually interesting. It wasn't even overnight. It was when the market started to realize that Trump was going to win,
The,
which
the
was
the odds
way
of Polymarket
before.
went from when the odds of Polymarket, it also was a direct movement with the odds of Polymarket going from like high 50s all the way to 69 or 60 and then 70. Like you could just the market was just moving in line with that.
So it was really interesting. So I'm from California. I'm from San Francisco. So I've got a group chat with my high school friends who are all pretty liberal. Then I was watching MSNBC and like flipping between CNN, MSNBC, and Fox, and just seeing how the different channels were covering it. Then Twitter, and then Polymarket, and these things, you would think that these things would all be kind of in line or kind of similar with maybe a lag, but the market realized basically Polymarket and the market moved to Trump like a solid 2 to 3 hours before media did, and before my group chat from home with fairly liberal friends moved to that conclusion. And so yeah, I mean, look, the market's telling us what it thinks. It's Bitcoin went up 7%, all time high. Coinbase shot up like 20%. I hope you bought that Coinbase when we had breakfast. And yeah,
You
it's just
saw
like,
me confirm the trade on the phone.
oh, yeah, you're right. But I mean, like zooming out for a second, we have operated in an industry where for the first decade of the industry, it wasn't partisan nor bipartisan. It wasn't like people didn't like us or liked us. Nobody cared about us. So first 10 years of the industry, nobody really cared about us. But the last several years, we have operated as in an industry where people didn't like us, right? Whether it was this recent administration, but even people forget when in Trump in 2016 to 2020, he didn't like crypto either. So for the last 8 years, we've tried to build this industry with a political administration and House and Senate and kind of that side of things, just not liking us, just making it much harder to build and to invest in this industry. And so I think what's going to be really interesting to see and really fun to see is like what happens when you let founders and entrepreneurs operate to the full extent of what they think that they can do. And on the founder side of things, like we've all been kind of handicapped by what we can do in this industry, and I think that's that kind of power is about to get unleashed.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
couple of things to unpack. Brian Armstrong had a great tweet. It says, "Welcome to the new members of America's most pro-crypto Congress ever. 219 plus pro-crypto candidates and counting have now been elected to the House and the Senate. Tonight, the crypto voter has spoken decisively across party lines and in key races across the country. Americans disproportionately care about crypto and want clear rules for the road for digital assets. We look forward to working with the new Congress to deliver it." This was a day ago, so the full tally was not counted, but
It's
nonetheless, I mean,
200. It is now up to over 250
correct.
folks, and
Yes, which to me that candidly is probably more impactful from a legit because when I think about to your point around what's been handicapping the industries, we don't have clear rules and regulations, and so a lot of resources have been focused on trying to get that. Every team that I've invested in spends at least 10 cents on every dollar that they raise on sort of legal advice and forget about the things that they haven't done or the design space that hasn't been explored because there's just things that we haven't, not because we don't have the imagination to innovate, but it's just you just don't know, you just don't go there. And so I think it's going to be really exciting to see that. Of course, now it puts a lot of emphasis on delivering and executing at the project level. And
Right.
I think that's another point that I wanted to make. It's great. It might take a little bit of time, but if you're a founder in this space, then accelerate, right? Now it's fully on you to build, to execute. And I think that's really liberating. But yeah, the other thing I want to point out is Polymarket. Uh, Amazing what they've done. I think I had the privilege of meeting Shane very early on in his journey. Invested when I was at Parify. Parify has become one of his key partners. But it's just been amazing to see how Polymarket has become the news. And that was the thesis back then. The prediction markets, surface the truth and are higher signals when you put money on the line. And it was very interesting to see. I mean, I think they had a great tweet to the effect of like the Office meme, which is corporate wants you to identify differences in the two images. And it was Polymarket's October 24 prediction of the election outcome and the real outcome. And it was like the same. It's like the same picture. And I think that just goes to show how powerful that was, because everyone got it wrong. Like, I was tuning in on, even Bloomberg's of the world. They got it wrong. Either they have a lot of bias because they spin on one side. They're either very pro-liberal, and they don't like to report things as they are. But now we have what is a more credible source of truth in real time, combined with Twitter being owned by Elon, which is surfacing a lot of these insights. And so I think that was just very, very powerful to see. It was also the fact that it didn't go down. It's pretty amazing as well. There's a lot of volume on the line, and I think it was very, very good to see that. I mean, I think, again, yet another crypto application that is providing a lot of utility. We talk about stablecoins a lot. Prediction markets for this election were essential. So shout out to Shane and the entire Polymarket team for just becoming so embedded in the election and really showcasing yet another use case for crypto that is really useful for people. So that was pretty awesome to see.
Yeah, I mean, the success of Polymarket then, I mean, Robinhood just launched prediction markets as well. Like, this is, I was flipping between, like I said, MSNBC, CNN, and Fox. And Fox was, I mean, Fox basically turned off their coverage for a little bit and was just showing Polymarket. Like,
Yeah,
it was,
absolutely.
one of the real, I've really fought this, what I'm about to say, for years, because I'm a real believer in media. I'm a real believer in journalism and strong reporting, and I probably underweight the impact that Polymarket and Twitter has on the world, and I have for the last couple of years, because I'm a real believer in media. With that caveat, one of the biggest losers of this election is mainstream media. Mainstream media just, if you don't think that they are, I'm still in the processing phase of it for me. Like, I think I've come around to this later than most people have, because running a media company, and I think actually I want to make a clear distinction between, like, what I'd call niche or B2B media, and then there's mainstream media, and mainstream media just completely flubbed it here. I mean, they just missed, and they missed really badly. And I've been reading the coverage after the election, specifically, mainly from the New York Times and from the Atlantic, and they're continuing to miss. They're just continuing to say, half the country is misogynistic and sexist, and that's why the Republicans won. And it's just
It's very
really
polarizing. It's very
missing
polarizing.
the
Because
point.
yeah, because people, like, my mom was getting alerts on her phone. I landed and I'm with my parents here this week, and she was like getting notifications from the New York Times. I'm like, Mom, just turn them off. Like, just look at Polymarket. She's like, I'm gonna win. She's like, you're really calm. I'm like, he's going to win. Like, unequivocally. I've been telling people, like, for me, it was a no brainer. Like, I just never, like, obviously the odds kind of fluctuated a bit, but I mean, for a variety of reasons, I just felt he was going to win. But the media coverage, like, you remember when I told you when I invested in you guys?
Yeah.
A big part of my thesis was you have an opportunity to create a new media company and show the world what that could be. And that might be through different mechanisms that you can leverage some elements of crypto to create just a better organization. I think eventually you have to wonder, like, is there a probability where you turn into like there's a very good there's a couple of paths here. One, that you continue to grow, and the path towards growing is becoming very polarizing and clickbaity and appealing to a particular constituent base. Is that the right path? That's certainly what like the New York Times and even Fox, like they become very political. They become very biased in their reporting. But there's another avenue here where you can actually like growth is not incompatible with being objective and being balanced. And I think you guys have proven that over the last 2 years. Like you have been. I go back to that moment where one of your reporters published a op-ed piece. I forget. It was about
Not
some.
not a reporter, an
It was
opinion
it was
writer.
it was
Yeah,
an opinion piece. My
an
bad.
opinion piece, yeah.
And you guys published it. It was controversial. Most people didn't like it, but opinion pieces are important. You should be kind of doing that, and so I think it's been, from my standpoint, I think it's been very refreshing to see you guys kind of try to build and restore some of that balance in reporting and media organizations. Um, the question is, as you keep growing, like, can you like avoid that trap that every influencer, every large organization, some says, in order to continue to grow, you need to resort to these clickbaity things? Why? Because I don't know, for a variety of reasons. If you're an influencer, the value that you get, it's a very small percentage of the cut that you get from YouTube and Instagram and all these things. So in order for you to kind of, it starts with very pristine content, and then over time it just gets co-opted, and you have to do brand sponsorships and all this stuff. Is that really bad? No. Is it objective? No. um, so as long as you have proper disclosures, right? So anyways, I think that I'm optimistic. I don't think media, let's just be realistic, media organizations will continue to have a really big influence in the world and how people consume information, right? But you now have prediction markets that surface the truth and can at least be a thing that you can point to and say, no, actually, well, how do you reconcile what you're reporting and what's the market's telling us? Like, how do you bridge that gap?
Yeah,
And so, really excited.
yeah, like I'm actually very excited to work closely with Polymarket in the coming years, because I think that they media and prediction markets serve two sides of the same coin, which is trying to get to the truth.
Yeah.
So what media is really good at is actually contextualizing something. Like, again, not the New York Times and the Atlantics of the world anymore, but I think like someone like Blockworks, like our editorial team, I think is probably the best in the industry and really 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 good at what they do.
Mhm.
And they're very good at contextualizing things and adding like background and like thinking through things and sourcing things and actually just reporting on the facts.
Yeah.
um, what media, just because of like what media is worse at is quantifying the future and quantifying the facts.
Mm.
So media can add context, but it's very tough for media to be like, there's a 71% chance that Trump is going to win. And
Yeah.
you saw the New York Times start to try to do this, which is like their, little, they had a like the New York Times needle, they call it, but they completely whiffed on that.
Uh,
But that is them trying to quantify the future instead of just adding
mm.
context. And I
Yeah.
think that is where, but the problem with that is it's just an internal team of people there doing that, or it's some model they've built. And what you need are the free markets quantifying
Mhm.
things with dollars backing
Yeah.
the predictions. And so like I think the future will not be, oh, it's only prediction markets, or oh, it's only media. It's these two things kind of working in tandem, where the prediction market helps quantify the news
You
and the media
triangulate. Yeah.
contextualizes. Yeah,
Yeah, I think you triangulate on the truth, but in a world where you don't have prediction markets, a world is better in a world. The world is better when you have prediction markets to at least fact check. If there's a
agree.
big just to focus the discussion in this podcast and in other. There's a lot of debate around, well, which prediction market's better. There's a big divergence that we talked about in the prior episode. Well, who's right? Predicted says one thing, Polymarket says another. There's a big gap. Trying to explain that gap is useful. That's where we should focus the conversation. um, the question will be, of course, like, what is the future viability of a prediction market? The election encompass a lot of volume. You do need to have, for prediction markets, I think, um, to surface the truth. It goes back to this great book called Wisdom of the Crowds. And in order for the crowd to surface the truth, meaning a market to surface the truth, I think you need to have sufficiently large number of participants that are also heterogeneous, meaning if you all have like left people in an extreme scenario. You have, imagine it's a soccer match. Who's going to win the Champions League? Well, if you have all Real Madrid fans only betting on the market, and if you have millions of Real Madrid fans, well, obviously that's a very homogeneous market, large but homogeneous. So that skews it. So that's not surfacing the truth. What you want to have is a sufficiently large and like number and participants in the market and dollars backing it across a very diverse group that surfaces the truth. That's like the criteria that I think is Jim, forget his last name, in Wisdom of the Crowds. So that would be interesting to, and maybe this is from a product idea, Polymarket, it would be useful for them to kind of maybe try to quantify that.
Hmm.
And so, because there's a lot of different markets, people can go to Polymarket, you can pull it up, and they have on all kinds of stuff, sports, discrete events and whatnot. Some of them have very shallow liquidity. So is that going to be useful enough? Arguably not.
Yeah.
But I think it still allows us to, it's still better marginally, irrespective of whether it's sufficiently large or heterogeneous. I do still think that it is a good thing to focus on it, just to like for a conversation starter to say, well, what's the delta? Like, why is this phenomenon occurring, right?
Yeah. The last thing, and then we can move on from this, is the context that, so I think people think of just media as news stories, but like I'm really, really, really bullish on podcasts and newsletters, obviously, as people know from Blockworks and Empire and stuff like that. But like, we didn't cover the election actually that closely relative to some other Blockworks channels, but we have a
Right.
show forward guidance,
Right.
and like Quinn Thompson and Tyler and Felix, who's the host of Forward Guidance, like if you listen to them, you would have made a tremendous amount of money. Like they have been so early and so right on the Forward Guidance podcast. And actually, the other thing that I missed out on mentioning was like I was just plugged into we launched all these Telegram channels
Mm-hmm.
across the Blockworks like podcast. So there's an Empire channel, we can link it in the show notes. There's a Xerox Research, there's a 1000X channel. And I think the best source of information for me during the election was actually the Forward Guidance Telegram channel. So yeah, that's so anyways.
Yeah.
Let's let's get into crypto. Well, how do you think about just how are you repositioning your portfolio? Are you rethinking your invest? Do you feel like you're perfectly positioned? Do you think so? I mean, it was interesting looking at what went up. Right, Bitcoin went up like 7%, ETH went up
Right.
5 or 6%. The meme coins went up like 15%. Coin went up 20%, and the
Yeah.
DeFi tokens, like the probably blue chip DeFi's, went up like 15 to 20% as well.
Right.
So some of the L1s like Sui, Aptos,
Yeah.
Solana,
Scroll.
Avalanche went up 10 to 15%. Like
Right.
I think there's a really interesting thing to do, which is look at the performance in the first 24 hours, which
Yeah.
should actually, I think, give you some signal into what will happen over the next several months. So I'm curious how you're thinking about this.
I didn't make any changes. I was very well like positioned coming into it. I was as long as it could get, and so I was fully allocated. So as we were recording this, Bitcoin is at an all-time high of 76,361. ETH is at 2,800. Solana is about to hit 200. It's at 194. So yeah, I think you're right. It was really interesting to observe which ones rallied the most, particularly DeFi tokens. And I think there's a category in CoinGecko that talks about like SEC securities. I want to look at that and how that performed. Let's go quickly there. Categories. So CoinGecko has a nice filter that says categories, and there's one that in particular that I'm really curious about. Apologies here. Where is it? Alleged SEC securities. That includes Solana, Tron, and a bunch of others. So that was up. I'm pulling it up here for 1 sec. That was up over the last 7 days. That's been up quite substantially. And that includes Sol, BNB, Tron, Near, Filecoin, Matic, and then you go down the list from there, a lot of DeFi tokens.
So these are up actually less than, like Filecoin's only up 6%, Near's only up 4%, Ton is
Right.
only up 2%, Tron's down 5%. The things that are up the most actually tend to be,
Well,
I
memes
mean,
are up the most, right?
the
I mean,
memes,
memes,
the memes and DeFi. Like Lido's up 12%. Um,
right? Oh, on the you're quoting 7-day, not 24
yeah,
hours.
oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Well, it's
but
been more than 24 hours is the thing, but yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's I mean, everything's going up, right? But I do think so. What I, of course, if you
Like
look at
look
the
at
soul,
Aave. Aave's up 30% in the last
right?
28% in the last 30 days. In the
Yeah.
last 7 days, excuse me.
What's like whiff is up, whiff is down actually. Go up on a 7-day period. Whiff's
Why is
down.
WIF down?
I have no idea.
That does not make
I mean, it
sense.
was it rallied quite a bit from the bottom. It was like a 190 or so. Now it's a 238. Gold's
So
up quite a bit. Yeah.
So Ryan Watkins had this tweet, or I can pull it up. He said, "There's more opportunity. Single greatest setup for liquid tokens we've had since 2021. Global liquidity is expanding. Regulation is radically easing. A potential U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve could spark a sovereign Bitcoin accumulation race. Crypto is unambiguously becoming the election trade and will likely be the fastest horse in the race. A few powerful alt narratives are accelerating. AI autumn, Soul supercycle, meme coin mania, DeFi renaissance." How do you think about, like, are you trying to pick any new winners right now? Are you
Mhm.
re-looking at things? Or are you basically just sitting in your Solana, meme coins, Coinbase stock and just kind of sitting on that?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not doing like Chris Berniski had a tweet around like if you've been sidelined, you have the window on allocating is closing, and so yeah, he's had something to that
Yeah.
effect.
Yeah.
I actually would take the opposite argument here, and I responded to his tweet. I'll tell you why. We'll read his tweet first. I mean, he basically said that. It's a bit further down. If you've been sidelined, you have a narrow window of time to fix your mistake. That was a day ago.
Mm.
My response to him says, I'd argue you have plenty of time because it's still very early and this industry will grow much more than most believe. We're still at a point where most businesses don't appreciate how crypto works or how it can help them. I think you'll know we're no longer early when most businesses leverage crypto and yet their users may not even know it or care about it. And that's the point. Because I do think that, like many transformational technologies, crypto will be invisible, but its impact will be felt. Like, again, going back to the discussion, like Polymarket was very visible. It was very useful for many people beyond the crypto kind of what is still a very small ecosystem I would characterize, even though there's millions of users, however you want to slice it. But you know what I mean? Like, okay, like we talk about the biggest opportunity I think ahead of us is if you're a project, the design space hopefully just opens up dramatically in the things that you can explore and the way you design your token economics and how, and then the inverse of that is, or the alternate point is a lot of businesses have been sidelined, like people that want to invest in the asset class. You know, we've heard it from multiple institutions like BlackRock's of the world, like a lot from an allocation perspective. Many banks, RIAs can even, most of the flows into ETFs are still self-directed accounts or not managed accounts, meaning the banker's not calling, can't recommend an ETF product. But I'm quite excited, obviously, from my vantage point, and what I'm trying to do now with the fund is you ought to wonder how many businesses, I think at this point, understand this, have a good sense of what crypto can do for them, but they haven't really been comfortable getting involved because of the lack of regulatory guidance and clarity and a very hostile environment, right? So, I mean, I think this is a perfect setup. Obviously, you can play it in the short term. I think the markets continue to, I would sort of agree with Ryan's take and Chris's take. Like, it feels like 2025 is going to be a great year for a variety of reasons. But if you extend that to 5 years, 10 years, like there's a
Yeah.
real shot that I mean, you know what I mean? Like it's not a 10 trillion opportunity here. If this really works, it's going to be way bigger than that.
Scale is the blockchain that is simply built different. Let's face it, other L1 networks have costly transaction fees that increase as the network gets busier. Skale has solved this problem with a gas-free, scalable infrastructure where users never pay gas fees. Skale was awarded the most active gaming chain in 2023 by CoinGecko and hosts 5 of the top 25 games on DApp Radar. You should definitely check out Skale. I was using it the other day. It really is incredible to use. That's Skale, spelled with a K. Hit the link in the show notes or head on over to skale.space/ecosystem to get started today. Hey everyone, Jason here. I wanted to quickly talk about Cronos ZK EVM, a next generation zero knowledge layer 2 blockchain network focused on scalability, security, and innovation. Secured by Ethereum, it further expands the Cronos ecosystem using ZK Sync tech. Cronos ZK EVM has launched its Pioneer program, offering early users loyalty points for engaging with Cronos ZK EVM and its dApps. Join the first quest by depositing CRO in the Cronos ZK EVM bridge to receive ZK CRO and loyalty points at mainnet launch. And that's not all. In addition to receiving ZK CRO and loyalty points, you could also win part of a $30,000 ZK CRO giveaway by depositing in the bridge. The more you deposit, the better your chances of winning. Visit zkevm.cronos.org/bridge for more info. Now let's get back to today's show. Are you a project founder struggling to pay your team in stables or even just giving them token grants? I've seen this issue firsthand throughout the space. Traditional payroll or EOR providers don't support crypto. Even if you wanted to do it yourself, it's really complicated to figure out all the tax withholdings, report to the IRS or any government, and manage local filings. Toku simplifies every part of global token compensation. Everything from paying full-time employees in stablecoins, issuing token grants to your team and investors, all in 100 countries on one platform. You can plug Toku into your existing payroll setup or even choose a fully managed service. No guesswork, no missed deadlines, no complexity. Reach out to their incredible team at toku.com or by hitting the link in the description of today's episode. Let's face it, building on crowded L1s or expensive L2s is just not going to unlock the next generation of applications in crypto. That's where Supra Containers come in, offering a completely new solution that transforms your development control. Imagine dedicated, customizable app spaces running on Supra's 500 KTPS Layer 1 blockchain. You get complete control over gas tokens and fees with the freedom to use your own token, create local fee markets, or even go gasless. Scale on demand and build with better customization than app chains, all at a fraction of the cost. Plus, with MultiVM compatibility, you can easily deploy your EVM, Move, and SVM smart contracts. It's time to rescue your projects from the costs, complexities, and fragmentation of traditional solutions. Get notified when Supra Containers are ready for builders at supra.com/containers. Earlier in today's episode, I mentioned Ledger's latest products, the Stacks and Flex, and I wanted to take a few seconds to tell you more about them. These wallets feature the world's first secure touchscreens, which don't just simplify your digital transactions, but also keep them extremely safe. These wallets are virtually impenetrable to online attacks because they store your private key in a secure offline chip. You can manage more than 5,500 tokens and install up to 100 apps. Choose the most trusted name in hardware wallets and take control of your digital security today at ledger.com or hit the link in the description of today's episode to check out their latest wallets. So I think you both are right. Chris is probably right that we're entering the stage of the cycle where things get really freaking crazy. Like 2025 could be really crazy. And like, do you really want to be buying, if you're kind of trading the cycles, do you want to be buying Bitcoin at like 120 or something? Like maybe not, like late stage cycle. If you're holding for a decade, yes. What I think nobody is thinking about is we had a massive what's the opposite of influx? Departure of developers actually to AI about a year, maybe over the last like 2 years. And what you're about to see, I think, and we're kind of positioning for this with, we just announced permissionless 4 today, which I know you're probably 7 a.m. there right now, so I don't know if you've seen it yet, but we're bringing it to Brooklyn. Well, you already, yeah, okay.
We're up by 5 a.m. What are you talking about?
Yeah, you're out here.
I'm drinking great Hawaiian coffee. This is
thing
straight
that
straight jet fuel.
that looks phenomenal, actually. The thing that nobody's thinking about, or I just haven't seen people talking about, is what happens to the industry when you get when you 10x the number of developers. And
Yeah.
these aren't crypto developers; these are Shopify developers and Stripe developers and
Yeah.
developers coming from traditional capital markets and
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
Airbnb and from
Yeah.
Facebook. And look, it takes them some time, and maybe they're not as what they lack on the crypto nativity and the ability to launch a token and have that token go up, they make up for and more in their UI, their UX, their ability to think about customer acquisition, and yeah, just build a really good consumer product. And so I think people forget what happens when you 10x the number of developers in an industry, and that is much more important in 2025 than the price going up in 2025.
Yeah.
We are about to 10x the number of
Listen,
developers in the industry.
we hit a just an all-time high before the election, and maybe the market was feeling that. I'm talking about Bitcoin. Um, it's sort of like we've gone this far in a very hostile environment. You know, no matter how you want to talk about it, Vance from Framework had a great tweet around how difficult it is to run a U.S. Based investment firm in
Yeah.
crypto, like from one day to the other. And I've seen it. Your bank account gets shut down. It's very difficult to have service providers. People constantly discount you. So it's from that standpoint, it's very hostile. Most teams left the U.S. They went to Dubai. They went to Singapore. They just gone even to London because that's marginally better. So, I mean, certainly, like you're going to have more developers coming into the space, but from my standpoint, like there's a lot of really good tech that's been built.
I mean,
It hasn't been
full disclosure,
adopted
it is
because
legal. It is legal to work in crypto now. Like it's obviously been. You're not going to go to jail for working in crypto, but they make it about as hard as you can make it to work in an industry. I mean, everyone was getting debanked last year. It's hard to set up a fund. You can't accept tokens. Everyone's setting up these Cayman entities. There's no rules around how to issue a token. Like
yeah,
it is damn hard to
difficult,
operate in this
difficult.
industry.
Yeah,
Even hosting conferences. Look at all like Consensus used to be the flagship US conference. They're hosting their event in freaking Toronto next year.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
they left the US. And so
Here's
it's
an interesting take that I agree with Xiao. He said if Trump wins, ETH loses its regulatory moat. Mind you, ETH. He's referencing ETH has been dubbed as a not a security, accelerating the timeline for the sole ETH flipping. I actually agree with. It's an interesting take. I, of course, have talked about Solana flipping Ethereum because I see more developers, I see more activity there. Some of the slope of the curve. And if you go listen to the debate that I had with Avichal is actually the one that described it like this. Shout out to Avichal. He said the slope of the curve, because they put out the developer report. There are more developers in Ethereum today. There's more TVL on Ethereum today. But the slope of the curve is what you want to be looking at is from the best new teams are building on Solana. The best, most exciting projects are building in Solana. More users, the newer users and developers entering the space are going to Solana. One of my portfolio companies, Time.Fund, just announced that it was going to move over to Solana. There's plenty of examples like GeoNet. Some of these projects, like they all realize the activity and the attention is in Solana because it provides a more just a more seamless, frictionless experience for the user. So I actually, shall framed it from that lens, which I thought was interesting, and I agree with. So Solana is up vastly. Solana responded much more than Ethereum after the election. Like Solana's now, it was like a 160, now it's at close to 200. ETH has gone up as well, but Solana, like the Sol ETH chart, pull that up. I'm not a chartist but I do appreciate
I'm
hitting
not
that.
a chartist, but when I see the Sol ETH chart going up, I will want
But
to share.
I'd be remiss.
So look at here. Let me get out of the prices for a second and show you what I think is more interesting, which is not actually. I tweeted this. I said U.S. conferences are back. So Tolly tweeted Breakpoint USA 2026. Jill said, "Hear me out, DevCon 2025." And Rushi said, "Can we finally have more conferences in the States yet?" And the thing that is interesting is, I mean, Santi, you've been in how long? You've been in the industry? A decade, right? Every 2 years every 2 to 3 years we ebb and flow between Asia and the US. It's like,
Well, Middle
US is
East
super
too.
hot, US cracks down, everything goes to Asia, then China does the Bitcoin mining ban, everything comes back to the US, then FTX blows up, Gensler cracks down, everything goes to Asia, and this marks the US is back on, I would say. The
For
US
sure.
the US trade is back on. People are reminded that New York is the crypto capital of the world, the hub
Yeah.
of all the of all the capital, and um, I just think that's good, net good for the industry and net good for the United States. Like it doesn't
Absolutely.
make sense necessarily that this industry should. I mean, I'm biased. I'm a U.S. person, but like
Oh,
it's
well,
a good thing to have a strong and vibrant U.S. ecosystem.
absolutely. The US, in my mind, like when people ask me where I'm from, I identify American. I'm not American, but I identify American because it's the best place in the world for two reasons. One, it has a system that works. Why? Let me elaborate on that. Crypto. You've still had a very hostile, the branches of government. What makes a democracy great? You have executive, legislative, and administrative. Even in a very hostile administration, you still won most of the biggest, most important court cases. When it went to court, then the constitutional interpretation of things, like there was a bedrock there. And we have talked about it how many times in this podcast, is you have to believe in the court system. Because if the court system fails, and it fails in many other countries, then that's a problem. So no matter who the executive is, no matter how the administration, the legislative um, composition is on one side of the aisle or the other, you believe that the courts will interpret the Constitution and the key values and principles of a country and what it stands for. So I think, like, from a systemic standpoint, countries are great from that reason. Like, the interpretation of the law needs to be sound and predictable. It has been in the U.S. for crypto. I appreciate it's been very regulatory, like the hostility's been at an all-time high, but the courts have ruled in the favor of Ripple. What is it? DCG Grayscale, right? You had the ETF approved. We had to sue the three-letter agency to get it approved, and we won. You know what I mean? Like, so that's really powerful. And the second one is just from a cultural standpoint, like it is a place that it is aspirational still for most people around the world. Like you go to the US because people care more about what you think and what you stand for as opposed to where you come from, if you come from money or not. Um, and you can actually fail, and people allow that. There's so many cultures where it's not very pro innovation because as soon as you fail, it's like seppuku, like your family, it's a disgrace. And I'm not going to name the countries, but there's many cultures like that. And so I think I came to the U.S. and for me it was the biggest opportunity that I had because you are in the most competitive markets, whether it's New York, whether it's elite institutions, um, and also people care more about what you think, and that's so refreshing, incredibly refreshing. People that don't appreciate that live in the U.S. Go and travel, go meet people, ask immigrants where they come from and how they're treated in their country culturally. For that reason, I think America, in my mind, has always been the greatest country for at least of our generation. Is it on it? Is it at its prime and peak? No, but I'd argue where this is a big inflection point to recover marginally what it lost. And I'm really excited to see that.
Yeah.
Heck, I'd move back. I told you this. I'd move back. I'm not sure I'm going to
You
move
think you
back.
think you'll move? You think you'll move back? Do you
Said
think you'll move
differently. I
back
have I have
for
office
most
space.
of the year?
I have office space in New York now.
Let's
That's
go.
where that's where most of the people that I'm hiring are going to be based. The strategy and most of the businesses that I'm already looking to acquire are based in the US.
The other thing that people haven't mentioned is the IPO market is going to open up. It's been really tough to raise money as a crypto company. We're not raising, but like talking to a lot of founder friends, if you are a seed and Series A, like you probably actually had some success the last couple of months, but Series B, Series C, and Series D are completely hamstrung from fundraising right
Yeah.
now. And there's two reasons for that. One is the IPO markets are closed. They've been closed.
But
The M&A
they've never been open for crypto companies really, other than
they've
like,
never been up.
you know,
They've never been open
it's
because
more
the crypto
of
companies
it's more
weren't big
the,
enough the
it's more the
last time they
fundraising
raised
environment
money.
has sucked. You haven't really had new money come in or being allocated to crypto funds.
Well, all the funds are really struggling to raise, as you know.
Yeah.
There's some tiny fundraises happening right now with these funds. I think a
Most
few
have
of them
been
are.
most of the success have been like sub 100 million funds. Some
Yeah.
have breaking like 200, 200. There's few that have raised more than that.
So there's just no new money, and 10T Dan Tapiero and 10T led our last round, and I saw that Dan said something on stage at an event yesterday. Said they got like 30 to 50 inbounds yesterday,
Yeah.
from folks. And we had our board meeting this week, and he was saying similar stuff. Um,
Yeah.
just about like what would happen, which is there's a lot of allocators who are
On
now
the sidelines.
just woke up and they can't allocate to the liquid crypto markets. Like they're not just
No,
buying ETH or Solana
no,
or
no, no,
Bitcoin.
no.
So they need to allocate to these funds. That'll take them, what, 6 months to do. And so there's actually there's a real lag in the fundraising markets
Yeah.
from an event like this. And so I would watch it. Maybe we'll see it like end of Q1 going into Q2. Like I think you'll start to
It
see
might
some
be
big.
it might be sooner than that actually.
Do you think
Well,
so?
what's different now, of course, is well, two. What I'm thinking about is how many of these allocators haven't allocated, and we're waiting for the outcome of the election, waiting for uh, and so now that that's been resolved, where are they going to allocate? Are they going to buy an ETF? Have Did they do that before the election? Um, and how much of their allocation of crypto from a portfolio standpoint is going to go to funds? Historically, it's been this idea of like I'm going to allocate in a fund, and that's how I'll let them handle a lot of the complexity. And now you have an ETF in the picture, right? But we've had it for a while. I think the ETF, the people that were on the sidelines, I would argue, more of that capital will flow into funds, less so on a marginal basis into ETFs, because people, I think, for the most part, kind of like were comfortable buying the Bitcoin ETF, maybe an Ethereum ETF. But you're right. I mean, we should track flows, but I do think I got like 2 or 3 emails from different funds. They're like, we're opening the subscription window all of a sudden, and you're like, yeah, of course you are, which is good, like.
Yeah, you don't
And
say.
I think to your point around Dan and 10T, like a lot of them are getting inbound interest from people that were just waiting for this to be resolved to then saying, okay, I do want to have exposure, and now I want to find the right manager to do that for me.
Yeah, yeah. Um, can we just talk about this? How crazy thing. I have two friends who are down in Mar-a-Lago, and actually, well,
Say
never mind.
it.
I'm not gonna. I mean, basically, Trump was just saying extremely bullish things about crypto to them.
I
Like
mean,
outlandishly bullish is what I would say. Just outlandishly bullish
listen,
to them.
if even 5% of what he said about crypto is true and actually follows through on it, I mean, it's a huge win.
'Cause- So, like, take the bit. Yeah, take the bit. The Bitcoin went up 7% overnight. But take something like the Bitcoin Reserve. So, as a reminder, the Bitcoin Reserve was introduced by Senator Lummis back in June, I think.
Mhm.
And basically, what the Bitcoin Reserve means is you would use existing funds at the Fed and the Treasury to purchase 1 million Bitcoin, which would make the US the
1
largest
million units of Bitcoin.
units of Bitcoin, which would make the US the largest nation state holder of Bitcoin, give us about a 5%.
It still is because of the seized Bitcoin,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
believe.
good point. Okay. It would
Yeah,
give us about a
but it,
5. Yeah, that's a good point. But it would give us about a 5% ownership of the network, which people are like, "Oh, they would never do something like that." Well, newsflash is that we are 5% ownership of the network is about on par with our stake in the global gold supply, actually. So this would get us on par with our ownership in the gold supply. And if you look at where we're at as a country, we have 36 trillion in debt, growing at about $1 trillion every 100 days. All roads seem like they're leading to inflation. There's a risk of losing the status as the global reserve currency if that keeps happening. And if you have a long-term outlook here, like everything from a macro perspective signals that you should increase your exposure to risk assets. I don't think it's really crazy to think that Trump might actually follow through on something like the Bitcoin Reserve or shutting down the ability for the U.S. Marshals to sell their seized Bitcoin.
yeah, yeah.
These kind of things that it's like it seems like these outlandish things, but now that it's actually happening, I mean, the head of his transition is Howard Lutnick. Howard Lutnick is the runs Cantor Fitzgerald, who banks Tether, right? He owns personally hundreds of millions of dollars of Bitcoin. It's just like I don't think people are really big understanding how insane this actually could get.
People ask me why I still in crypto is because I tell them very concretely, I am of the mind that I'm earlier now than I was before, because you see the impact of starting to work in many things that perhaps before I didn't appreciate. And the second, I think it's sort of this quote by Bill Gates, which is, we tend to overestimate what happens in 2 years and grossly underestimate what happens in 10. And I appreciate we've been at this for more than, since like the financial crisis. But I genuinely think that this is like, I think our most of the markets and people's imagination doesn't go that far. So you stop believing, because if you've been in an environment where things have been slow, and not all of it is attributable to a regulatory environment that has been hostile, but you become tired, you become more skeptical, heck, you become cynical. And it's really important. In my time in crypto, it is so important to check yourself in the mirror and say, have I become cynical? Because you got to remind yourself of why you came into the space. You got to also re-underwrite your thesis, as you're doing now. Perhaps with this, there's new information, there's a new environment. You should re-underwrite the thesis, but go back and remind yourself, observe, talk to founders of what's working. And again, it's like invert and say, if it's been working and we've gone this far with the tech not being as great, that was like, or with the regulatory environment's been hostile, the combination of all that, but you have some really powerful, really useful pieces of tech, like a stable coin or like a prediction market, or then you wonder, like, okay, yeah, this can actually be way bigger than 10 trillion, or way bigger than digital,
Right.
like a gold market cap. Yeah. How much value do you think gets settled on the fucking internet? How big do you think that is? You mean, like, that's not 10 trillion? Sorry, I hate to break it. It's way, way bigger than that. Now, is it going to take, like, the challenge always, like, markets always get ahead of themselves, and maybe that's Chris's point. Like, you gotta underwrite that. You gotta move before others do. Um, and a lot of the big moves in prior cycles have been, you had to be allocated. Like, the difference between allocated in like a month before Compound launched liquidity mining and the month after was the difference between a 30x and a 20x, or a 15x, or a 5x. Like, it was months. And
Yeah.
so is that gonna be different this time around? I don't know. Markets do react very violently, but man, it is still kind of crazy that money can now move kind of at the speed of light. And that's just, we're talking about this. Most people like don't appreciate how limited the investment opportunity is for people outside the US. They cannot buy Apple stock. I've had this belief that perhaps the most amount of money in this space will be captured by people that aren't in the space today, but will
Mm.
be in the next couple of years, because they're coming at it from like that fresh perspective that you came at it. Like, when you started in crypto, you're like, holy shit, this could really transform the internet. But you spend enough time, you get rugged a few times, you get frustrated, you lose
Yeah.
patience, you become cynical. But I think the whole theme of this episode, the narrative, is, I think you ought to re-underwrite your thesis.
I
and
think that's
and
a
hey,
really good point. I mean, take something like tokenized stocks. Like, that will happen, but if you've been in the industry for as long as we have, you hear that and you're like, "Oh my god, you don't get it." 50
oh,
people,
mirror and synthetics
you don't
and
get it. Everyone's tried that, doesn't
yeah.
work. Someone will come and do that. Someone will come and do that. Or here's another one. I wanna move these freaking I mean, thank God it wasn't a close election, because thank God it wasn't a close election, because if it was close, I mean, the next 3 months in this country would be total hell. Like, the election fraud and the votes getting
Yeah, very
recounted,
good
like,
point.
we gotta move these votes onto a damn blockchain or something, or some better system. Like, some entrepreneur who's never worked
Seriously.
who's never worked.
Colorado did this, a pilot. I
I
don't know
know,
why it
and
never
everyone's
went far.
piloted these things, but, all these entrepreneurs in crypto, who are the really good entrepreneurs, including myself, would be like, "That's been tried before. You can't do that." And some entrepreneur out there is gonna be
You
like,
know,
"Oh my god, we gotta fix this.
what
Crypto's the
makes a
solution."
yeah, no, what makes a great founder? You and I have listened to so many founders. You're a great founder. What makes a great founder? I'll tell you
I
why.
mean,
I'll tell you why. I think the best founders need to be like maniacally obsessive about a particular idea, combined with some naivete of how
I was gonna say
difficult.
naive. You have to be
You
naive
have to
to
be
make this
naive
real.
enough to not fully understand how difficult it's going to be, but you have to have both the ability to take extreme pain. That's a quote from the Four Seasons founder. Excellence is the ability to take pain, right? That requires a maniacal obsession about, right now I'm obsessed about friction in systems. It pisses me off. Like, every hotel, every interaction that I have, I'm like, God damn it, there has to be a better way to do fucking things, So you're maniacally obsessed about something. You're obsessed about media and the frustration with it. But you also have to be naive enough of how difficult it was going to be. And you have to keep at it. So your point is it almost requires, if you've been in the space long enough, you probably lose that sense of naivete, but you have to be kind of new coming into the space and say, well, shit, why are we counting votes with paper and all this crap? Like, there surely is a better way to do that in an immutable ledger, right? Right? And he doesn't know that there have been like 30 pilots. Like, I'll give you an example. Talking about mistakes I've made in my investing trajectory, which is not very luminary, but nonetheless, I passed on helium. Multicoin was like an early investor, and they came to me and said, hey, you want to participate? I was like, this has been tried way too many times in Web 2. Like, why is it going to be any different? And it was that, sometimes, or like a lot of people passed on DeFi because they said Uniswap. Oh, you must not know centralized order book models. If you're a finance guy, you're like, centralized order book models will always be superior. I'm like, yes, but let's talk about, some of the benefits of an AMM. So anyways, to your point around developers, I think in a perfect world, you want to understand, out of the new developers, how does that quality compare relative to prior cycles or prior? Like, is the quality, not just the number of it, but the quality of the founder? Where are they coming from? Are they the exceptional founders that in moments of time in this industry have come from the likes of Google and the top like Web 2 kind of companies? Are they entering the space? And where are they building? Which ecosystem? Which application? Now, all this to say, some of these founders are not necessarily the best because historically it's been very difficult to build in crypto, right? And a lot of the same founders that came from Stanford or some of these elite companies were the ones that ended up leaving the fastest because they lost conviction and they knew that they could just go and find another job, right? What I'm trying to say is, I think most of the people that pivoted to AI or left to space and like in prior cycles were these guys that like, or that came from the Googles of the world, and like they lost conviction really quickly. So anyways, I'm not suggesting that everyone in Google and Stanford is soft, but you got to have a lot of grit in this space and a lot of ability to take pain. And so anyways, it's not easy.
This week I saw two pictures that made me think of you. I will show them to you.
Oh boy, here we go.
No. This is one of them. Due to rising costs, all non-cash transactions will incur a 3.5% processing fee. Wait, here's the other one.
Ridiculous.
Here's the other
Where
one.
is that? New York?
Yep. And then the other one was my local bodega. Cash discount, 2%, baby. So friction in the system. We got 2 to 3.5%.
This is my calling. I'm like, I'm just obsessed. The same way that you are about media and transforming that. I'm obsessed from there ought to be a better way with just friction in systems. It's crazy.
You want to see something else that's wild just because I'm sharing my screen and it has nothing to do about crypto? I went to
wait, is this a crypto pod?
I went to a butchering class.
Wow. Look at
you. This dude Gary taught us how to butcher a full pig. Isn't that crazy?
Wow. Well, who's on the chopping block?
I was gonna tweet it. I was like, pig butchering, golden bull market. And I was like, this has nothing to do.
You're just stretching. You just saw something that was really. Is this really your first time you've seen like this the sausage making process, so to speak?
I'd never seen how the sausage is made. Yes.
Yeah. Well, definitely avoid it. Fascinating discussion. We're both up at 5 a.m.
Have you watched the permissionless launch video? If not, I'm going to show you it. It's 30 seconds.
No, let's go. This is Brooklyn one.
It is. Can you hear the sound?
Yeah, I can hear it. like the song. Oh, this is nice. Solana color, baby. Guys, I'll be there. By the way, great song. Great
How sick
song.
is that video? How good is that video? All right. That's
What
the
else is
roundup.
that? I think that's pretty good, right? Anything else we should talk about?
No. Go. I'm sure other people have much. If you guys want an actual political take of what happened in this election and like an actual debrief of like red versus blue type of stuff, I'm sure Quinn and Tyler and Felix are going to do that on the Forward Guidance podcast. But yeah, that's it. Bullish crypto in the United States. And just yeah, if you have made it this far and you've been listening to Empire for a while, like small tap on the back for getting to this place. And I know a lot of Empire listeners, like it was your first real cycle, and a lot of you guys came in and the last cycle maybe and braved it through 2022 and 23 and got to this point. And yeah, just grateful for all you guys for sticking with us.
We have a Telegram chat. There's some activity happening there, so you might want to join that. And
There's some activity happening there. Yeah, we let's put a link at the very top of the show notes. Make it easy to find. We've got 362 folks. We have somewhere between like 10 and 15,000 listeners per episode here. So we gotta pump those numbers.
Yeah, there's rookie numbers. Let's pump them up. Ladies and gentlemen, if we're not at 50,000, I'm quitting this. I'm gonna be way busier going forward. By the way, I mean I was busy before, but we need to get 50,000 or bust. 15,000, 50,000, and that's like selling short.
Bust. Yeah.
We go
folks,
way higher.
Great. We released the Zach episode on the day of the election, so I would recommend going and actually listening to that episode if you guys missed it. It's Zach, the founder of Bridge. It's his only interview he's done since selling the company to Stripe. So I'd really recommend going to listen to that
For
episode.
sure. Yeah. And by the way, thank you for the feedback. I know a lot of you have DM'd me. A lot of people really like that episode. And this is one of the most diehard listeners. He always sends me feedback on episodes. So again, now's your chance to share feedback live on the Telegram group or on YouTube or on Twitter. We are listening. If you like stuff or you don't like stuff that we're doing, please let us know. We appreciate it.
Cool. Cheers, folks. See you Tuesday.
Right. Thank you, guys.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching today's episode. Just wanted to quickly thank today's title sponsor, Skale. Skale really is one of the best chain experiences out there today, and I've used so many different chains. There's a reason they are gaining so much adoption in both gaming and AI use cases. Hit the link in the show notes to explore the Skale ecosystem.